The stars had never looked so cruel. Captain Rebecca Torres pressed her forehead against the cold viewport of Orbital Station Prometheus, watching another cascade of broken metal tumble past Earth's atmosphere. Each piece caught the sunlight like a dying firefly before vanishing into the darkness. 6 months ago, humanity had dreamed of touching those stars. Now they were nothing more than a cosmic dumping ground. "They're early today," muttered engineer Daniel Park, his reflection appearing beside hers in the reinforced glass. His usually steady hands fidgeted with a datapad, unable to hide his frustration. The Corinthian freighter just dropped 12 tons of scrap, didn't even slow down. Rebecca turned from the window, her gray eyes hardening. At 42, she'd spent half her life preparing humanity for this moment. First contact, the joining of civilizations. She'd imagined handshakes and shared knowledge, not this systematic humiliation. "How much of it reached the collection zone?" she asked. "About 60%. The rest will burn up over the Pacific." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Station Chief Okonkwo wants to see you. It's urgent." The walk through Prometheus felt different these days. The corridors that once buzzed with excitement now carried an undercurrent of anger. Crew members passed with clenched fists and forced smiles. Everyone had heard the recordings. Everyone knew what the Galactic Assembly really thought of Earth. Station Chief William Okonkwo stood in the command center, his tall frame silhouetted against a wall of monitoring screens. Each display showed a different angle of the debris field growing around their planet. At 60, William had fought for funding, recognition, and respect for the space program. Now he fought for something far more precious: dignity. "Rebecca." His deep voice carried the weight of sleepless nights. "We just intercepted another transmission from the Assembly. They're classifying us as a Level 2 species." "Level 2? Rebecca felt her stomach drop. "That's below agricultural worlds. Apparently we lack the neural capacity for complex thought." William's bitter laugh echoed in the empty command center. "According to Ambassador Thex, humans are emotionally driven creatures who stumbled into space travel through lucky accidents rather than genuine understanding. We're to be monitored, guided, and kept safely away from anything that might hurt us." Daniel slammed his datapad onto the nearest console. "They're treating us like children who found their parents' tools." "Worse," William said quietly. "They're treating us like pets." Rebecca moved to the central display, pulling up the debris tracking system. Her fingers danced across the interface, highlighting specific objects in the field. "William, look at this. These aren't all broken components. See this energy signature? And this one?" William leaned closer, his eyes narrowing. "Those are active power cells. Not just power cells." Rebecca's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "I count at least 7 shield generators in yesterday's dump alone. Damaged, yes, but not destroyed. Daniel, pull up the spectral analysis from last week's collection." Daniel's fingers flew across his station. Lines of data scrolled past, numbers and readings that would mean nothing to most people. But Rebecca saw the pattern immediately. They're discarding functional technology. Old models, probably replaced by newer systems but still operational. "Why would they throw away working equipment?" Daniel asked. "Because to them, it is garbage," William said slowly, understanding dawning in his eyes. "We're so far beneath their notice that they do not even consider we might understand what they're discarding. It's like throwing away a broken smartphone in front of someone who's never seen electricity." Rebecca felt something ignite in her chest. Not hope, not yet, but possibility. "They gave us permission to collect their waste. Official sanction from the Galactic Assembly. They want us to clean up their mess like good little janitors. They never specified what we could do with it afterward," Daniel breathed. William straightened, and Rebecca saw the fire return to his eyes. The same fire that had driven him to build Prometheus against impossible odds. "How many recovery teams do we have operational?" 12 ships, sir. Small, fast, designed for debris collection. The Assembly barely acknowledges their existence." "Good. Keep it that way." William moved to the communications panel. "Rebecca, I need you to assemble a team. Scientists, engineers, anyone with expertise in alien technology. But they have to be people we can trust absolutely. No one who might have loyalty to the Assembly's integration program. Where do we put them? Daniel asked. The Assembly monitors every major facility on the planet. Rebecca smiled for the first time in weeks. My brother works at the old Carlsbad mining complex. Been shut down for 15 years. 3,000 feet of solid rock between the surface and the main chambers. The Assembly's sensors would never penetrate that deep, and they have no reason to look. To them, it's just another abandoned human facility. How soon can we move? William asked. Give me 72 hours. I'll have a team ready and the facility prepared. Rebecca pulled up a secure channel on her tablet. But William, if we're caught doing this, the Assembly won't just embargo us. They'll classify us as a rebellious species. No more contact, no more trade, nothing. Earth becomes a quarantine zone. William met her gaze steadily. And if we don't do this, we become exactly what they think we are. A species too primitive to matter, forever dependent on their scraps and goodwill. I'd rather risk extinction than accept that future. Over the next 3 days, Rebecca moved like a ghost through Earth's scientific community. A quiet word here, a careful suggestion there. She chose her team with surgical precision. Theoretical physicist James Blackwood, who'd been laughed out of the Assembly's technology exchange program. Xenobiologist Patricia Hammond, whose papers on alien neural structures had been dismissed as primitive speculation. Materials scientist Robert Chen told his research into adaptive compounds was a waste of time. Each one carried the sting of rejection. Each one burned with the need to prove the Assembly wrong. They gathered in the depths of Carlsbad on a moonless night, 23 of Earth's brightest minds standing in a cavern that had once held copper and now held hope. Portable lights cast long shadows on the rock walls. In the center of the space, carefully arranged on examination tables, lay the fruits of their secret salvage operations. Rebecca stood before them, her voice echoing in the vast chamber. For 6 months, the Galactic Assembly has told us what we are. Primitive, limited, incapable of understanding the greater universe. They've made us janitors of our own orbit, collectors of their trash. But they made one critical mistake. She gestured to the recovered technology behind her. They assumed their trash was worthless to us. They assumed we'd see broken machines and give up. They never considered that humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our weapons. It's our ability to look at something everyone else has dismissed and see possibility. Patricia Hammond stepped forward, her dark eyes gleaming with curiosity. These shield generators, the ones they threw away like broken toys, they use a crystalline matrix system. Beautiful engineering, but fragile. One crack in the crystal chain and the whole system fails. So we don't copy their system, Robert Chen added, running his hand over a damaged generator. We improve it. We take their concept and rebuild it using human principles. Redundancy, adaptability, resilience. James Blackwood nodded enthusiastically. The Assembly thinks in terms of perfection. Every component must be exactly right, or the system fails. But humans, we've always had to make do with imperfect materials and limited resources. We've built an entire civilization on the principle of good enough. Not just good enough, Rebecca corrected. Better than enough. We're going to take their discarded technology and show them what human ingenuity really means. Daniel Park, who'd been coordinating the recovery operations, spoke up from the back. We have contacts in the orbital stations, people who believe in what we're doing. They can keep the Assembly's attention focused upward while we work down here. Rebecca nodded. We move in absolute secrecy. The Assembly's inspection teams only care about surface compliance. They see us collecting debris, cataloging it, storing it in approved facilities. They'll never think to look for what we're really doing 3,000 feet underground. William Okonkwo, who'd arrived separately to avoid suspicion, stepped into the light. His presence commanded immediate attention. This isn't just about building better shields or faster ships. This is about proving that humanity deserves a seat at the galactic table, not as children to be guided or pets to be managed, but as equals. What we build here in secret, in defiance of everything they believe about us, this will define our species' future. The team dispersed to their stations, each claiming a section of recovered technology to study. Rebecca watched them work with a mixture of pride and fear. They were betting everything on human creativity, human stubbornness, human refusal to accept limits imposed by others. If they failed, they'd be remembered as the fools who threw away humanity's chance at peaceful integration. If they succeeded, they'd be the ones who taught the galaxy to never underestimate a species just because they came from a small blue world. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more tales from across the universe. For 3 long months, the underground facility had been a hive of organized chaos. Rebecca's team worked in relentless shifts, their eyes strained from screen glare, their minds buzzing with alien possibilities. The cavern walls were a collage of progress. Whiteboards scribbled with complex equations, holographic displays rotating 3-dimensional models, and workbenches buried under the guts of extraterrestrial tech. Patricia Hammond hadn't slept in 36 hours. Her workstation was a bizarre mosaic of crystalline fragments, arranged in patterns that would have baffled the very Corinthian engineers who made them. She held a damaged shield generator crystal to the light, her eyes tracing how energy fractured and scattered through its broken surface. "They're so obsessed with perfection," she muttered to herself. "One tiny flaw, and they junk the whole thing. But look at this." She slid the crystal under an electron microscope, throwing the magnified image onto the main display for everyone to see. The fracture created new pathways. The energy doesn't flow in a straight line anymore, it branches out, it adapts. Robert Chen looked up from his materials analysis station, intrigued. "Are you saying the damage actually made it better?" "I'm saying the damage made it different," Patricia corrected. "And different isn't always worse." Her fingers danced across her keyboard, launching a flurry of simulations. "The assembly's technology is beautiful because it's precise. Every crystal is perfectly aligned. Every energy pathway is calculated down to the millimeter. But that precision is also its greatest weakness. Change a single variable, and the whole system just falls apart." James Blackwood, the team's theoretical physicist, abandoned his work to join them. His models had been predicting something like this for weeks, but seeing the proof sent a jolt of electricity through him. "It's like comparing a diamond to a spider web," he said, his voice filled with excitement. "The diamond is flawless, perfect. But if you hit it just right, it shatters into a million pieces. A spider web is messy and irregular, but you can break one strand, and the web still holds." Rebecca appeared behind them, her voice heavy with the exhaustion they all shared. "Can we replicate it? Can we intentionally create these adaptive pathways?" Robert was already on it, his screen filled with material composition analyses. "Not with their crystals. We'd need something more flexible, more responsive to energy changes. Something that can reorganize its molecular structure on the fly, instead of maintaining a rigid form." "You're describing something that doesn't exist," Patricia said. But her tone wasn't dismissive. It was electrified with a new idea. "Not in their technology," Robert countered. "But we've been working with adaptive materials for decades. Neural networks, self-healing polymers, responsive alloys. What if we stop trying to copy their perfect crystal matrices and start building our own system from scratch?" The weight of that idea hung in the air like static before a lightning storm. This was no longer about repairing alien tech. They were talking about completely reinventing it. Just then, Daniel Park burst into the research area clutching a data tablet. "We have a big problem. The assembly just announced mandatory inspections of all debris collection facilities. They're sending teams to every single registered storage site on the planet." The room fell silent. All eyes turned to Rebecca. "When?" she asked, her voice steady, despite the dread knotting in her stomach. 2 weeks, Daniel said grimly. "They're calling it a safety review, making sure we're handling hazardous materials correctly. But the real reason is buried in the subtext." He pulled up the official transmission. Ambassador Thex mentioned concerning reports of humans trying to study recovered technology beyond approved parameters. Someone talked. Or they're just getting suspicious of our salvage efficiency, said William Okonkwo, emerging from the communications hub he'd built in a side chamber. We've been collecting more debris than any other species at our level in assembly history. They probably think we're hoarding it instead of properly disposing of it. Patricia slammed her hand on the workbench in frustration. 3 months, we've had 3 months, and we're just scratching the surface. If they shut us down now, we will never get this chance again. Then we don't give them a reason to shut us down, Rebecca said, her voice dropping to a quiet intensity. Daniel, how many registered facilities do we have? 7 major sites, all on the surface, all easy for them to inspect. Okay, fill them with actual garbage. The most useless, damaged, irreparable junk we've collected. Make it look like we've been desperately trying and failing to understand technology that's way over our heads. We give them exactly what they expect to see. James caught on immediately. We play into their prejudices, show them the stupid, primitive humans who can't tell a power cell from a paperweight. They'll be so busy feeling superior they won't think to look any deeper. What about this place? Robert asked, gesturing to the cavern around them. This facility isn't registered. If they do a planetary scan, we're under 3,000 feet of solid rock, William reminded them, and we've been extremely careful about our electromagnetic emissions. As far as any scanner is concerned, this is just an empty, abandoned mine shaft. But we need some insurance. Rebecca, how much do you trust your brother's discretion? Thomas knows what's at stake, she confirmed. He's been feeding the Assembly official reports about seismic instability in this whole region. According to their records, this entire area is structurally unsound and completely off-limits. Let's make it more off-limits, William decided. Stage a minor collapse in one of the upper tunnels. Nothing to hurt anyone, but enough to justify sealing off this section of the mine permanently. The Assembly town waste their time investigating a condemned mine when they have 7 active facilities to poke around in. The team split into action. One half pushed forward with their research, fueled by the ticking clock. The other half began the strange task of making their legitimate facilities look like a showcase of incompetence. It was harder than it sounded. They had to look earnest in their failure, not like they were deliberately hiding something. Patricia found herself working alongside Robert as he experimented with new material compounds. You really think we can build something better than assembly technology? She asked during a rare, quiet moment. I think we can build something different, Robert replied, carefully mixing a polymer base with nanoscale metallic particles. Better is subjective. Their shields are probably more energy efficient, more elegant, but ours will be more adaptable, more resilient. It's the difference between a purebred racehorse and a mutt. The racehorse is faster and prettier, but the mutt is the one that survives. Patricia laughed. Humanity is the mutt of the galaxy. I've heard worse descriptions. The mutt that learns to hunt while the racehorse waits to be fed, Robert added with a grin. The next 2 weeks were a blur of controlled panic. The assembly inspection teams arrived right on schedule, their ships gleaming and perfect as they entered Earth's orbit. Ambassador Thex himself led the delegation, his towering insectoid form looking imposing even through a video screen. Rebecca stood in their largest surface facility, surrounded by carefully arranged junk. Every piece was legitimately damaged beyond repair, and every attempt at analysis was documented with painful, amateurish detail. She'd even planted a few spectacularly wrong theories about how the tech worked, guaranteed to confirm every single prejudice the assembly held about human intelligence. Captain Torres, Thex's translator, converted his sharp clicks into condescending English. We appreciate your species' enthusiasm for learning, but these materials are clearly beyond your current capabilities. Perhaps in a few centuries, when your neural development has progressed sufficiently. Rebecca bit back a dozen angry replies, forcing herself to look disappointed but understanding. We just wanted to help, to prove that we could contribute something of value. Your contribution is to accept your place in the galactic order, Thex replied, his huge compound eyes scanning the facility with obvious disdain. This obsession with understanding technology you cannot comprehend only delays your integration. Focus on what your species does well. Agriculture, perhaps. or artistic expression. Leave the complexities of advanced engineering to those who have evolved for such tasks. The inspection dragged on for 3 days. The assembly team snooped through every registered facility, their reports no doubt filled with smug observations about primitive human efforts. Not once did they look beyond the obvious. Not once did they consider that a species might be clever enough to show them exactly what they expected to see. When the last inspection ship finally departed, Rebecca returned to the underground cavern. The team was gathered, the strain of the charade etched on their faces. But there was something new in their expressions. Not just anger or determination, but a cold, focused purpose. "They called us neural simpletons," James said, his voice flat. Thex actually used those words in his official report, neural simpletons who should be grateful for the privilege of cleaning up their garbage. "Then let us show these simpletons what we've accomplished while they were patting themselves on the back," Patricia said, striding over to her station. "Robert and I cracked it. We've created a shield matrix that doesn't use their crystalline structure at all." She activated a small device on her workbench. A soft hum filled the air as energy flickered to life, forming a translucent barrier around a metal test sphere. "This is based on the adaptive polymer Robert developed. It's not as pretty as their crystals, and it uses about 15% more power, but watch this." Patricia grabbed a laser cutter and fired a beam at the shield. The barrier rippled, the energy dispersing across its surface like a wave. Then, she adjusted the laser to a completely different frequency and fired again. The shield shimmered, its molecular structure reorganizing in real time to counter the new threat. "Now hit it with the first frequency again," Robert instructed. Patricia fired. This time the shield barely flickered. "It learned," she announced, a triumphant smile spreading across her face. The polymer network remembered the energy signature and optimized its response. Every attack actually makes it stronger and more efficient against that specific threat. Their shields block damage through perfection. Ours block damage through evolution. The cavern erupted in cheers. It wasn't a complete solution, not yet. But it was proof. Proof that human ingenuity could not just match alien technology, but completely reimagine it. Rebecca felt tears she didn't know she was holding back finally trace paths down her cheeks. 3 months of doubt, fear, and desperate work had all led to this single moment. They had taken the assembly's trash and forged it into something new, something uniquely human. "This is just the beginning," William said, his voice ringing with conviction. "We've proven we can understand their technology. Now we prove we can surpass it." Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more. We'll see you in the next one. The months that followed felt like living in 2 different worlds. Above ground, humanity played its part, acting as the galaxy's janitors. We collected space debris and filed reports that only confirmed the assembly's low expectations. But below ground, in the secret depths of Carlsbad and 3 other hidden facilities, a revolution was brewing. I stood in what we called the Forge, watching my team turn theory into reality. 6 months ago, this place was just a cavern. Now it was a testament to human ingenuity. Assembly power cores, the ones they told us were too dangerous to use, were now rewired and enhanced, providing clean, stable energy. Fabrication units, built from salvaged parts, were creating components the assembly had never even dreamed of. It was a fusion of alien precision and human creativity, but it was the people who had truly transformed. Patricia Hammond was no longer the exhausted scientist who'd been ridiculed at the assembly's technology exchange. Her eyes now burned with the fire of someone who had proven everyone wrong. She moved with a confidence that came from no longer asking for permission to be brilliant. "The shield generators are ready for full-scale testing," she announced, gesturing to a row of devices. They looked nothing like their crystalline alien counterparts. Where assembly tech favored elegant curves, ours were compact, angular, built for pure function. "We've installed them on the prototype hull sections. Robert, are we ready?" Robert Chen stood beside a piece of what looked like a ship's outer plating. The metal it was made from hadn't existed a month ago. "The adaptive armor is synchronized with the shield system," he confirmed. "Together, they should provide protection equal to assembly military vessels." Maybe even better since ours actively responds to damage instead of just absorbing it. James Blackwood couldn't hide his excitement as he started the test sequence. Initiating low-level energy bombardment, standard assembly weapons frequencies. The shields flickered to life, a translucent barrier forming around the hull. Energy bolts fired in controlled bursts. The shields held, rippling with each impact, learning and adapting with every single shot. Increase to military-grade intensity, I ordered, my heart pounding. The weapons fired again, this time with enough force to vaporize unprotected metal. The shields strained, visible stress patterns spreading across their surface. For a terrifying second, I thought we'd pushed too far, too fast. But then the shield stabilized. The stress patterns smoothed out as the adaptive matrix reorganized itself. "It's holding," Patricia breathed, her voice filled with awe. "It's actually holding against weapons that should have overloaded it." Daniel Park checked his readings 3 times before he believed them. "The shield efficiency is increasing with each hit. It's not just holding, it's learning how to hold better." The entire cavern fell silent. We hadn't just matched assembly technology. We had created something that improved through combat, something that grew stronger from the very attacks meant to destroy it. It was perfectly, beautifully human. William Okonkwo, who had been watching from the observation platform, came down to join us. His weathered face showed an emotion I'd rarely seen there, hope, mixed with a healthy dose of fear. "This changes everything. If we can shield one hull section, we can shield an entire ship. If we can shield one ship," he trailed off. "We can shield a fleet," I finished quietly. "But William, we're not warriors. We're scientists, engineers. Building weapons was never the goal." "No," William agreed. "But building the means to defend ourselves, to stand as equals rather than subjects, that was always necessary. The assembly made that clear when they labeled us too primitive to have a voice in our own future." Just then my brother, Thomas Torres, emerged from the communications tunnel, his face grim. "We have a situation. The assembly just announced a development initiative for Earth. They're sending construction vessels to establish monitoring stations across the planet. Official reason is to help us integrate into galactic society." "And the unofficial reason?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "Control," he said. "They'll have eyes on every major city, every industrial facility, every launch site. And they aren't asking for permission. Ambassador Thex made it clear this is for our own protection." Patricia slammed her tablet down on a workstation. "They're putting us in a cage and calling it help." "How long do we have?" James asked. 6 months until the first stations are operational, but the construction ships arrive in 3 weeks. Thomas looked straight at me. "Rebecca, if we're going to do something, it has to be now. Once those stations are active, they'll detect any unauthorized energy signatures, any launches, anything that doesn't fit their narrow expectations of us." I looked around the forge, at the faces of people who'd given up sleep, relationships, and normal lives to prove humanity's worth. We'd done it all in secret, hiding our brilliance because the galaxy had decided we didn't deserve to shine. Something inside me, something that had been building for months, finally broke. "No more hiding," I said, my voice steady and clear. "We've spent 6 months proving we can understand their technology. Now we prove we can surpass it. Daniel, how many ships do we have?" "In the hidden dry docks, 12 hulls, various sizes. Only 3 are close to completion." "We finish them, all of them," I declared. "We work around the clock if we have to." I pulled up a holographic display of Earth's orbit. The assembly dumps their debris in predictable patterns. They're creatures of habit. They've gotten comfortable, lazy. We're going to use that against them. "You're talking about revealing ourselves," William said carefully. "Once we show them what we've built, there's no going back. They'll either accept us as equals or classify us as a threat. They already see us as something less than people," Patricia shot back. "At least this way we force them to see us at all." Robert nodded slowly. We'd need to make a statement they can't ignore or dismiss, something that proves beyond any doubt that human innovation deserves respect. Then we give them a demonstration, I said, my mind racing. The Assembly Council meets in 3 months at the Nexus Station. Representatives from every member species, all gathered to discuss galactic policy, including Earth's continued classification as a primitive Level 2 species. James caught on immediately. We crash the party, show up uninvited with ships they never thought we could build, using technology they literally threw away like garbage. It's incredibly risky, William warned. If we miscalculate, if our ships fail or our shields don't hold, we'll have proven their point. We'll be the primitives who reached too far and fell. And if we succeed, I met his gaze. If we show them that humans can take their cast-offs and create something better, something they never imagined, then we will have earned our place at the table. The team looked at each other, a silent conversation passing between them. They were more than colleagues now. They were believers in a future where humanity stood proud among the stars, not as pets or children, but as equals. 3 months, Patricia said, with steel in her voice. We can do it in 3 months. We have to, Robert added. It's our only chance. The work that followed made our previous efforts look casual. The forge never slept. Shifts blurred together as exhausted engineers were replaced by slightly less exhausted ones. Fabricators ran at maximum capacity, producing components that were installed almost before they'd cooled. The hidden dry docks echoed with the sounds of construction, of metal being shaped and systems being integrated. I found myself working beside people from every corner of Earth. Scientists who'd been dismissed as dreamers, engineers told their ideas were impractical. Each one carried the scars of rejection, and each one channeled that pain into creation. The ships took shape, slowly at first, then all at once. They were smaller and more compact than assembly vessels, built for efficiency, not intimidation. But they were beautiful in their own way, a perfect marriage of alien tech and human determination. Their shields hummed with adaptive power. Their hulls gleamed with armor that would learn from every blow. Their engines, rebuilt from salvaged cores, burned with power the assembly never thought to extract. Patricia stood beside the first completed ship, running a hand along its hull. What do we call them? I thought about everything these vessels represented: the defiance, the hope, the refusal to be defined by others. Phoenix class, I said, because we rose from the ashes of their contempt. As the deadline approached, the tension in the forge was so thick you could feel it. We'd accomplished the impossible, building a secret fleet with technology that rivaled the galaxy's best. But none of it would matter if we couldn't make the assembly see what humanity truly was. The night before launch, I gathered everyone in the main cavern. 12 ships now sat in the hidden dry docks, ready to carry our message to the stars. Around me stood nearly 200 people who'd sacrificed everything for this single moment. Tomorrow we stop asking for permission to matter, I told them, my voice carrying to every corner. Tomorrow, we show the galaxy that humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our weapons. It's our refusal to accept anyone else's definition of what we can be. They said we'd never understand their science. We mastered it. They said we'd never build our own ships. We built better ones. They said we should be grateful for their guidance. We're about to teach them that equals don't need guidance. They need respect. The cavern filled with a quiet, fierce determination. We had spent months in darkness, building our future by hand. Now it was time to step into the light. Thank you for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe for the next part of our story.